All right. Welcome again. This is 12 Gauge, and this is my channel, 12 Gauge Investigative. This is your first time to my channel. Thank you for giving my channel a chance. And I don't know if I'm feeling the hat right now, but I thought I'd come back and give you guys another Suzanne Simpson case out of Texas. This video is going to have a lot more information, and we're going to be able to talk more about it. The other two had some information about that, but they really weren't as insightful as I thought they were going to be. So I hope that you guys kind of get on board and let's spend some time together this Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning, whatever it is, wherever you're at in your neck of the woods. I'm caffeinated and I'm ready to party. So who is down with that? Can you dig it? Can you dig it? If you can, let's get started. So let's go. I changed out the computer, so hopefully this is better. Um, this is better than the other one. I don't know what's up with that other one. I guess it just doesn't have the capacity to stream as fast as this one does. So let's get started. Let's listen to what they got to say. Okay. Where's the sound? Maybe there is no sound. So it says authorities continue to search Bexar County landfill for missing Omo's mother, Suzanne Simpson. So, um, I guess that they got some leads or whatever that she could possibly be in the landfill area, or I guess that's common practice now to go and search the landfills. I don't know if that is, but that is crazy. That is crazy that they're searching the landfill. Let's see if they have anything. So I guess this is just a camera without sound for a little bit. If you're not up to date on this case, what we learned this morning was Suzanne Simpson was married to her husband. His name is Barry Simpson, and supposedly they were out one night and they had been having disagreements. There had been disagreements, and they had went out to a dinner, and they're from the San Antonio area, the suburb of San Antonio. Well, according to the neighbor, they were heard arguing. The neighbor heard a scream in the woods not long after the arguing. The mother of Suzanne, as the other video stated, and I'll play that video here in a minute. That way we can get caught up. This is just something new that I wanted to show, and I'll get back to this because it's 5-hour stream. So let me stop sharing this and let's get to the other videos that I showed this morning. That way you'll be able to see them without interruption, because I was watching that live this morning and I was thinking, man, there's a lot of lag. There's a lot of lag on that. So we'll start with this one. This one, the longer one. This is going to be one of those cases I almost guarantee it's going to go crazy. It's going to be something that a lot of people are going to be talking about. Mark my words, because there's too much secrecy and there's not a lot of transparency. So here we go.
Police say the mother of 4 was last seen outside her home late Sunday night, fighting with her 53-year-old husband, Brad. A neighbor says later he heard screams in the woods nearby.
They said that he had been arrested the day before.
That report coming in from KSAT in San Antonio, Texas, where Brad Simpson has now been arrested on multiple charges of violent assault causing bodily injury and unlawful restraint. This after neighbors heard suspicious sounds coming from their home the night before he reported his own wife, Suzanne, missing. The search for Suzanne continues, and friends and relatives and neighbors held a prayer vigil for her. Reporter John Paul Barajas with KSAT has the story.
Family, friends, and strangers gather to pray for Suzanne Clark Simpson. She was last seen last Sunday. At this time, for loved ones, leaning on their faith seems like the only thing they can do.
I just don't understand. I don't understand why it happened. It wasn't part of their life.
Suzanne's mom, Barbara Clark, says she spoke to her daughter 1 hour before she was last seen.
She called me up and told me the things that Brad had done to her physically.
So the mom was talking about 1 hour before all this happened. Obviously, there had been a lot of physical confrontations, and her mother, as you're going to hear her say, never spoke to her again.
Well, I came up with an alternative plan for her in the hope that she'd move in with me. I never got to tell her the plan.
Clark explained Suzanne told her her husband Brad had hurt her arm and back around 9 p.m. According to an arrest affidavit, around 10 or 11 p.m., a neighbor then saw the Simpsons fighting outside their almost park home and later heard screams from the wooded area nearby.
Do you think that Brad's responsible for her disappearance?
Angela, thank you.
I agree with that. I would like to visit with him and ask him why. What happened?
Clark adds the family's doing the best they can, but she is worried about Suzanne's 4 children.
That's hard to know exactly how they're doing.
And even as everyone tries to remain positive, Clark fears her daughter is no longer alive.
I don't think she is, because I have not heard from her.
Is there anything you say to Suzanne right now if she could hear you?
Suzanne, we love you. We need you. And we pray for you.
All right, thanks to KSAT for that report. Think Tank's still with us. Al Wunsch III, Darnell Crosland, and Jennifer Brandt. Jennifer, he's not yet charged with murder. He's charged with unlawful restraint because of what those neighbors overheard of injury that causes bodily injury or assault that causes bodily injury. Do you think that there's a reason that they are waiting to charge with murder?
Maybe just to gather up some more evidence. I mean, she hasn't been found. Maybe they hope that they will find her. So I think maybe a little more time is needed just to sort of put together everything that they do have before they can level those charges against them. They want to be right. So I think it makes sense to just see if there's anything else that comes up, especially finding her. I think that is the most critical part of all of this.
Absolutely. Of course, wanting to keep hope, but Al, listening to the mother when she was asked if her son-in-law had anything to do with this, it's almost like she couldn't bring herself to say the word. She just said, I can agree with that, instead of just, yes, I think he did it. Can they move forward in terms of the prosecution if the worst happens and they don't find a body?
I think the valuable lesson that we learned on this whole thing is that if anyone lives near me and you hear screams in the woods, call the police immediately. Okay. I mean, why wouldn't have someone called the police at that instance? The neighbor had such detail as to what argument was going on and didn't think to maybe pick up the phone and call 911. Didn't think to say, I hear screams after a big fight. There might be something wrong here, folks. So neighbors of mine, please make sure you call the police.
So I mentioned this earlier, see something, say something, because you just never know if your tip or your knowledge of whatever's going on could help somebody. I mean, you can remain anonymous. You can, be able to possibly assist somebody in a time of need. There's so many cases where people do not call 911 immediately. They're calling everybody but 911. So I would suggest, I can't change anybody's thought pattern, but I would suggest that you get into the mindset of calling the police, even if it's not an emergency, which later found out. I'm sure they'd rather it not be an emergency, didn't have to be investigating a missing person like this.
Police first and go from there. But do they have enough now? No, they don't have enough now. And I think it's a smart move to keep him on ice the way they have it, and to see what evidence they can find and what they can start doing, and hopefully they'll find her phone, and then maybe things will start to turn around a little bit.
Yeah.
But they got him on enough to keep him out of commission for a while, and I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, Darnell, he doesn't have bond. So what do you think is happening with his defense? He's no doubt either been given a lawyer. He likely has a lawyer that he's called. What's happening now from the defense side while the search continues?
Unlike Al, I disagree with the keeping people on ice. I'm a very strong component of the constitutional rights that we have. And unlawful restraint, someone has to prove up that he restrained her unlawfully, restricted her movement, etc. The neighbors hearing screamings or whatever they heard cannot prove that up. And to have him with no bond, which I've seen these in my cases, because they suspect that he had something to do with the death, is not good enough for me. I think that the most they could have proved up was a breach of peace or some type of...
Don't be spreading lies like that. They told you that he wasn't arrested for suspicion of her murder. They didn't say anything like that. They said they arrested him due to him restraining her and not letting her go. See, this is how things get set up. This guy is talking about constitutional rights, but yet then he insinuates that he's been detained because he's been suspected of murdering his wife. There's nothing that was said of that.
Disorderly conduct because of the sounds or whatever. Now, in terms of the murder case, I agree that they should not bring that case now. If they brought that case now, they'd have to have a judge swear on an affidavit with the judge. And based on what they have now, all they have is a person that's missing, that has history of arguing. So that affidavit wouldn't fly. And lastly, if they did take it out now, here in Connecticut, you can file a speedy trial and you have to be brought to trial within 30 days. And if you're not, then the defense files a motion for dismissal, and it must be granted unless there's some circumstance. So if they brought it now before they had evidence, the speedy time runs, and they could lose the whole case, and she gets no justice at that point.
Now, I want to add some facts, Darnell, to the analysis you just gave. The mother, we understand, provided police with this almost words beyond the grave, where, not the grave, I shouldn't say that, but the words from someone who is not there, and the mother believing that something has happened to her daughter. But she said on the day that her daughter went missing, or within those days surrounding it, her daughter for the first time admitted to those family and friends that there were problems in the marriage that involved physical abuse. Jennifer Brandt, we see this in these cases, but this is family and friends after the fact, after she's missing. They believe he had something to do with it. Is it enough?
I don't think it's enough for murder, no, but I think it's enough if they bring further charges against him, and ultimately if they do find her or do find a body. I think some of this is very important evidence that she was, telling family and friends that he was hurting her, that she was injured. She came up with a plan with her mother. I mean, it's so sad that she, seeing the mother there saying that she never got to have her daughter enact that plan and be able to move in with her. So certainly there were things going on in this relationship. And if she told her mother, we can only imagine that maybe she told some others as well, close friends, maybe even the children. I don't know their ages, but there might have been other people that knew about this, and certainly the neighbors, for whatever it's worth, they did hear these screams. So all of this put together is definitely pointing at him. It's just a question of, what will ultimately be the charges.
This is a case in East Almost, Texas, near San Antonio. This is where the search is going. So if anyone has seen, Suzanne has information. They're, of course, asked to contact the authorities. Our thanks to the think tank for being with us this Monday evening. That's all the time we have for tonight, but we always appreciate your expertise, and we know we're going to see you real soon. Next.
Yeah, that guy does look quite annoyed. He's like, God, you just pissed me off. Like, what the hell were you thinking? You know what I mean? It's crazy. But I mean, I hate when, I have nothing against mainstream media, because obviously they have information that we don't at this point. But to sit there and have to be an expert on panel and to spread something that isn't true like that, that's just irresponsible, in my opinion. Let's hear from the victim's sister. She gave an interview. Let's hear what she had to say. Hit a number one if you're enjoying the show so far. And if you have any questions, be sure to type those questions in the chat with a star next to your name, and I can pause it and answer those questions.
My name is Teresa Clark. I am Suzanne Clark Simpson's sister. And on behalf of the Clark family, we want everyone to know that we are devastated by the loss of my sister. I am here to be a voice for my sister, and the search will continue and we will not stop until we find her. We are going to bring Suzanne home because Suzanne was an incredible mother, daughter, sister, and she was a beloved person of the San Antonio community who was born and raised in San Antonio. We are so grateful that Suzanne has a large tribe and a large family because we are determined to find her. Lastly, the Clark family would like to thank all the people who have been involved, especially Governor Abbott, the DPS, the Bexar County Police, the Almas Park Police, the Kendall County Police, the FBI, the ATF, the search and rescue people. If there's anybody I'm leaving out, forgive me. I'm not trying to leave anybody out. We're grateful for every person who has tried to help our family, who's helped our family by opening their arms and making prayers and all the things that everybody has done. In closing, all we have to say is we love Suzanne Simpson the most, and we are going to bring her home.
Teresa, how does it make you feel that the chief had said that she was going to be, she may have been in the landfill, and now they've closed that area of searching? How does that make you and your family feel?
Well, the thing about it is that because we have an ongoing investigation with so many people involved, I'm not really allowed to directly speak about any questions because right now the only thing that we can focus on is finding my sister and bringing her home, and that is our goal, and that's why we started the vigil here, and this is why I'm making a statement on behalf of the Clark family.
How does it make you feel that Brad is uncooperative?
I cannot express any feelings except for finding my sister. So I appreciate everybody coming out today. Thank you so much. And I'm sure that we'll keep you up to date as we can do so. But at this moment, all we can do is be gracious, thankful, and pray to find my sister.
Are you the family spokesperson?
I am not.
I mean, you know, here in the true crime community, we talk so much about the family sometimes. And just listening to her and the strength it takes for her to do this interview and to deflect the question that she's being asked. Like, she didn't give any comment on what she believes about the husband or anything like that. And that takes some strength. The mom was the same thing, you know, she wasn't able, she was just, which I think is amazing that they're able to just say, well, you know what, we're just trying to find our family member. You know, I don't know. It's just terrible. These cases where the families are left with no answer at all, no kind of insight, nothing like that. I mean, and I'm about to pull up an article after this that kind of shows you why they were choosing to look at the landfill. So we'll go with that after this interview. We'll continue to listen to this interview.
The family spokesperson.
But for the Clark family, are you the spokesperson?
I'm speaking on behalf of the Clark family.
Have you been in contact with the family as well?
I cannot speak about the family. I can only speak about me and my sister, and that's the only thing I can talk about.
What's your favorite memory with your sister?
That my dad nicknamed her Jesus because he had a lot of clients named Jesus, and they say Jesus in Spanish is Jesus. And so my dad would always call her Jesus. So anyways, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you guys, and
Teresa,
I'm
do you
sure
mind
we'll
if I
talk.
ask one more question?
I'm probably not going to be able to answer it, but you can try.
Okay. It's okay. I know this has been a really hard time for you. What has helped you get through these past few weeks?
I mean, to be honest with you, so because I was raised in the north side, but then of course I've lived in Alma Heights and Suzanne's lived in Almas Park. And of course I love all of San Antonio, but the people that have helped me the most have been several of my friends from Clark High School. And so at the end of the day, I went to Lee, and then I had a lot of friends and a large network growing up here. And I can just really say that it's been my Clark friends that have really stepped up to the plate.
How are her kids?
I can only talk about Suzanne. I'm sorry.
Have you talked to them at all?
I mean, yeah, I have, but it's like I'm talking to them, but I can't talk about them just for the sake of their privacy.
And you wrote this with her daughter, Chandler. Why was it important for her, she felt, to get her message across as well?
Because it's her mother. And I think, everybody knows that one of the reasons that this is so crucial is because when a mother goes missing, they don't go missing by accident, because mothers have very set schedules of like coming home at night and making dinner, waking up and making breakfast, doing the hustle to make some money, taking the kids to their activities. So, when a mother goes missing of children need their mothers the most. And that is the reason that we've been able to get so many people involved in this situation, is because Suzanne was a beloved mother. She was an incredible person. And she just had the sweetest disposition. She always aimed to please. My mom's like, she's so easy to raise. And so when you have an incredible mother that is no longer there to cook 3 meals a day and get the kids to the activities and be involved in their schoolwork, their homework, everything that has to do with them, getting their hair done or getting them dressed or whatever the situation may be, it's just very heartbreaking not for somebody not to have their mother, is basically the bottom line.
So last week you posted something about her being found and her being dead. Where did those comments?
So I was traveling around the world on a trip that was sort of just like a once in a lifetime situation with a large group of people. And it started off as 54 people. And then the next week it was 124 people. And I had booked the airline ticket on American, and, it was just like on my miles. So it was very affordable. And they had set the trip up to go like Austin, Los Angeles to Doha, Middle East. Then I was in Phuket for 7 days, which was like a dream come true for me. And when I left to go on this trip, I was in deep prayer. Just, I don't know why, but for some reason, when I was on this trip, I was like, God, I am praying to you. I need you to give me the best focus, the best direction, like whatever the message is, I need you to communicate it to me. And so then I flew back home. And when I was flying home, I flew through Hong Kong and then took a different airline to go across the Pacific Ocean, which I've never done. That is why it's called a trip around the world. And when I received the message from my niece, I knew immediately that my sister was gone, because I know that my sister would never go missing for 16 hours. Like, that's just inconceivable. And so then I just thought it was like this super simple, cut and dry thing, that they got into an argument. They had all this information. They had found her near the house. And when you're on a plane traveling around the world, you're not privy to information. And because there was so much information, like, it was just very confusing. And I'm not a specialist in these type of things, obviously. So I just was misinformed, basically. And then when I got home, I went to see my mom. And then when I understood the severity of the situation, that we couldn't find her, then we've just trying our best every single day, praying that she will be found, because at the end of the day, we want to.
And that's such a sad situation. Can you imagine to be on a trip and then to have to find out about your sister once you get home? Thank you, Jeff H. If you have anything about the case, you're to contact the Olmos Police Department, Olmos Park Police Department at 210-822-2000, or search and support San Antonio at 210-372-7666. 7143. This is in Texas. So if you know anything about the case, you saw something, you heard something, you were privileged to something on a camera you may own, please contact the local police department or the San Antonio search. And we'll continue with the interview.
To have closure, for our families to move forward and make the most out of this situation for the sake of her children.
Speaking of closure, we've talked about wanting to lay her to rest, how important it is to have that funeral. Can you expand on that for us a little bit?
I mean, I don't really feel comfortable talking about that right now. I mean, I have visited with the family, and I do know, I have an idea of what the wishes are, but until we find her, once we find her, then we will get together as a tribe to figure out, the final plans. But right now we have a very large plate of details to handle, and the first detail is to find her, and then we have to figure out this and we have to figure out that, and so we have a lot of stuff to figure out. And once we just we're talking about it on a daily basis, what we want the plans to be, and respecting the wishes of our children. And so all we can do is every day, like, okay, we got to think about this. We got to think about that. We got to think about this. Who's going to step up and do this? Who's going to step up and do that? And so we're trying basically to divide and conquer, which is also what the state of Texas has done, which we are so grateful for all the people that have prayed, that have come out and tried to help us resolve the situation.
When is the last time you were able to talk to your sister and hear her?
I mean, I recently saw her before I left on this trip. So, but I don't want to get into any private details about my sister, just out of the respect for her. But before I went on this trip, I did see her and I did speak with her. So,
do you know about when that was? Just not about.
I mean, no, I was kind of trying to figure out when that was. And honestly, because there's just been, I've been really busy this summer, and I've been trying to stay busy just in general because of, the political situation. And when I tried to go back to the timeline, I was like, well, maybe it was August, but we have so much stuff going on that I can't really specifically say when it was, because I wasn't really thinking about it. It's just like a normal occurrence to be all, hey, Suze, you know what I mean?
So maybe August, maybe October.
I can't even tell you. I left town at the end of September, and I got back into town on Tuesday, October the 7th, which is, and then because I was like 24 hours ahead, I kind of had like a bit of a heads up on the situation by ways of her children. And
for those of you that are not versed in this case, she's been missing for like 3 weeks now, 3.5 weeks. So it's very dire to get this information out. So if anybody knows anything, please contact the numbers down at the bottom of the screen.
And so then, it just happened to work out that I got back into town, one of her children got back into town the same day. Then we've been trying to sort through all the details and trying to understand what's been happening. And at the end of the day, a couple days ago, one of the publications had made a very specific timeline of everything. And it was very helpful because once I read the specific timeline that the press did, it kind of just solidified everything of what the situation was, because unless you look at a timeline, it's hard to know all the details of what's going on.
I know you don't want to speak too much to the investigation, which we totally understand, but when it comes to getting justice for your sister, how important is that too?
Honestly, I can't even talk about that, because the whole situation is just really, truly heartbreaking for us. And, we have all been together since little children, because San Antonio just it's like a small community in a way. It's sort of like a small town in a big city. And so the only thing that we can focus on right now is every day we just pray And we just know that God's got this, because we would never expect something like this to happen. And then we just have to be patient for everything to sort of work itself out so that we can execute on the plan that best works for her children.
Thank you so much, Teresa.
Yeah, y'all are sweet to come out. I appreciate it.
That is
Hello.
so sad, and that is so sad. You know, and Jeff made a comment, and I hope this isn't true, that it happens. It's how the YouTube community, if they get a hold of this, that they don't turn on the family, you know, because it is just terrible to think about that. Not only do you have a missing family member, you have individuals that are turning on you and accusing you of certain things. Here's another video. I want to put as much out there as I possibly can. And if you're late to the chat, or you're watching on replay and you're watching from Texas, especially in the San Antonio or Austin area, you're urged to call the Almost Police Department at 210-822-2000 or search and support San Antonio at 210-372-7143. Any information, any camera footage, any kind of suspicious activity that you may have stumbled upon, please do the right thing and help this family find their loved one, or at least find some information on what could have happened to her. Or if you know anything else, please notify these individuals, because their children are devastated, I'm sure. As Ronnie said, they're 20, 18, 15, and 5. So if you've ever been a parent, or if you've ever had children or grandchildren, you understand how important it is for children to have people in their lives that they've had their whole life. And it's imperative that when somebody goes missing, if somebody knows anything, to say something. So here's another video for you guys.
Dotted traits, but police would unearth clues that would lead to a shocking arrest in the case. Texas mother and real estate agent Suzanne Simpson disappeared on Sunday, October 6th around 11 p.m. The following day, her husband reported her missing. For Suzanne's loved ones, they say it was unlike her to just disappear, adding it was unusual for her not to show up to work or even contact her children. According to police, the mom of 4 was last seen wearing a long black dress and black heels. Officials say she hadn't been heard from or seen since attending a party in the Alamo Heights neighborhood in San Antonio, Texas. Suzanne's disappearance would spark a huge search effort for her. Investigators were initially asked if they believe foul play was involved, and at the time they noted she was just a missing person. But a close neighbor of Suzanne would potentially unlock more clues as to what could have happened to her. According to the neighbor, he saw the realtor involved in a physical altercation with her husband, Brad, the night she disappeared. That neighbor told authorities he heard arguing outside of his bedroom window that became louder. When he took a look outside his window, he saw the Simpsons in a physical altercation, and it appeared Brad Simpson was clearly attempting to keep Suzanne from running away. After the
A physical altercation, like, you know, that's just not two people arguing or disagreeing. That's physically getting into a struggle. And what she just said, the neighbor supposedly saw Brad keeping her from running away, and then heard some screams later on in the woods. So what, where would she have gone? People just don't vanish like that. So this happened on the 6th, and today the 26th, so 20 days ago already.
altercation, the neighbor told police he grabbed a flashlight and tried to look for the couple, but heard screams from a wooded area of their home. About an hour later, the neighbor saw Brad Simpson get into his pickup truck and leave their home, only to return about an hour or two later. According to police, the following day, which was a Monday, the couple's child's school called Brad to tell them their child hadn't been picked up, which was normally something Suzanne did. Then the following day, after police interviewed staffers at the school where one of their children attends, the 5-year-old reportedly told staff her parents were fighting and that her dad assaulted her mom and took her phone away. The child also said Suzanne had a bruise on her elbow. Then another shocking development in the case. Brad Simpson was arrested Wednesday night after fleeing to his ranch in Kendall County, Texas during the week as police say he appeared to be separating himself from his family. He was charged with assault causing bodily injury, family violence, and unlawful restraint for the Sunday night incident.
I want to give a huge thank you to Upside for sponsoring today's Law and Crime YouTube takeover. If you're curious about what Upside is, well, it's a free app that gets you cash.
During a press conference on Thursday, 4 days after Suzanne's disappearance, the Olmos Park police chief said a search of the family's home didn't yield any concrete evidence that would point to Suzanne's whereabouts. Even the items located in the wooded area across from the home where the screams were heard after the fight between Suzanne and her husband Brad were determined to be unrelated to the case. The police chief said other properties are being and will be searched, but noted there are delays in obtaining search warrants, which has prolonged the investigation. Police say initially Brad Simpson was cooperative, but has since gone silent and lawyered up while sitting in jail. With Suzanne's children and loved ones continuing their search for her, they're reportedly holding on to hope she's okay. Meanwhile, her husband remains behind bars on a more than $1 million bond. Well, I want to bring on now retired Detective Commander Will Spieler to break this case down a lot further. Now, Will, it's always so great to see you. This case is pretty troubling. A Texas mother of 4 disappears, and while we don't know where Suzanne Simpson is at, what do you make of this case?
It doesn't look good. As you said, it's very troubling. It looks like it's a domestic situation based on what I've read and what I've heard. There's 2 instances. There's one at the venue they were attending, and then again at the home, and then she goes missing. Not good. Mother of 4. She doesn't do this. It just isn't good.
And it's interesting that, investigators initially didn't suspect foul play, but it's also been reported that Suzanne, like you had just mentioned too, was a loving and reliable person, and it wasn't like her to not speak to her children or show up to work. In your opinion, do you suspect foul play?
Absolutely.
See, that's one thing about when people are investigating a crime of any type, whenever you get called on a missing person or, a missing child, a lot of the time they're asking for the patterns of these individuals. What kind of patterns did they encompass? Were they stable? Were they able to carry on a routine daily? Did they have a schedule that they kept? Things like that. So whenever it's interrupted and then all of a sudden the person doesn't do these things, that's a huge red flag. Wouldn't you agree? Heather says, remind me of the Suzanne and Barry Murphy. I still want to know who the other remains were that were found with Suzanne. So that's Suzanne Murphy.
I absolutely do. And the thing is, initially, maybe there's a domestic disturbance and it's heated and she gets away for a while to cool down, to let the husband cool down. But the more time passes where she doesn't make the contact that she's absolutely going to make, then I absolutely suspect it's foul play.
And Simpson's husband was arrested, and the charges he faces are assault causing bodily injury, family violence, and unlawful restraint. Does his arrest come as a surprise to you?
No, not at all. I think that they established enough probable cause to make that arrest. In Texas, I think they're both the unlawful restraint is a misdemeanor unless there's another factor, which is the domestic part of it. So I think there are 2 felonies that they arrested him on. And I think based on the interviews they did with the witnesses and probably some video they may have reviewed at the venue, they established probable cause. Now, probable cause will get you held. The probable cause and reasonable doubt are 2 completely different things, completely different. And you have to do an investigation to get to the furtherance of this crime. Again, we don't know what it is yet, but it doesn't sound good.
And investigators say Brad Simpson hasn't been cooperative in their search for his wife and didn't even show up for, I believe, the second police interview it was. What does that signal to you, especially given that he is behind bars on a more than $1 million bond? Do you think police are now kind of connecting the clues that this might be worse than we think?
Yes, I think that's exactly what happened. And him speaking to the police, if he is in fact guilty of killing his wife or something like that, speaking to the police will not help him, and he knows that. So he's decided not to cooperate. It's his right. But yes, I think that he knows what's up. The police know what's up. And from what I've read and what I heard from their chief, who did an outstanding job in the briefing, they're doing all the right things to get to where they need to get.
And as far as we know right now, this is not a homicide investigation, but talk to me a little bit about what goes all into a missing persons investigation. Who are investigators speaking to? Are they collecting data from phones? What all goes into a missing persons investigation?
So missing persons investigations commonly switch over to, actually most missing persons investigations result in the person coming home. In cases where it doesn't, unfortunately, it comes to our side of the fence in the homicide section. Now, what they have to do is they have to interview everybody that was involved, the people at the venue, the neighbor who was the outcry. Why didn't he call for 24 hours? Mr. Simpson himself reported his wife missing, which is very common in these instances where things have gone bad. They're going to do interviews. They're going to execute warrants at the house. They're going to do warrants of the vehicle. And I heard the chief talk about some stuff they may have already obtained. Now, if he's talking about what I think he's talking about, he has some sort of a DNA sample. I don't know if it's going to be blood or tissue or whatever it is. Now, you have to analyze that. You have to establish a profile to say, yep, this is DNA. Now, you have to have something to compare that to. They're doing search warrants in the house. You're going to try to find DNA in the house that will match the evidence that they already have. So there's a lot of forensics involved. And again, you also have 4 children and the husband living in the house.
Okay, this is some information about Suzanne. She's 5'5". She's born 6/16/1973. She has hazel eyes. She's white. Last seen in Olmos Park, Bexar County. Date missing, Texas. Case type, other. She weighs 140 pounds. She's 51. Hair color brown. Sex female. Last seen on 10/7/2024. It was unknown what Miss Simpson was last seen wearing. So once again, if you have any kind of information, please call. Please notify the police. Please notify somebody of any kind of information that you might have. This family is in dire need of finding their loved one. Even if the end result is not a pleasurable one, do your diligence and call 911 or the police if you have any information whatsoever.
So now that's 5 other people. So, the DNA is fantastic. It's one of the best things we have, but it's not like you see on TV. It's not like I have DNA, you're caught. There's many things that are involved, eliminating other people's DNA. So there's a lot of work to do, and it sounds like they're doing it.
And from what we know right now, is there anything at all that suggests to you that maybe something else may have happened to Suzanne Simpson, maybe that didn't involve Brad? Or do you think kind of, and again, we're just speculating here because we don't know for sure right now, but is there anything to you that points out that maybe Brad wasn't involved in his wife's disappearance?
You don't want to be myopic. You don't want to say, yep, this is my guy and that's it. I'm not looking at anything else. You can't do that in an investigation. But as the investigation progresses, your scope, based on what you learn, becomes much more narrow. So is it out of the question that something happened other than involving the husband? It's not out of the question. But again, as the investigation continues and it narrows, it's unlikely that something out of the blue happened.
And what do you make of the neighbor statements to police at the?
The only thing that we've heard is they attended a party or a dinner that night, and after coming home from the dinner, they got into a verbal argument in the front yard, and I guess she was trying to pull away, and he kept, grabbing her, and the neighbor called 911 later on, and then no, the neighbor didn't call 911. I'm kind of confused here. I got so many cases in my head. But the husband reported the wife missing 24 hours later. The neighbor saw Brad leave in his truck and come back in an hour later. And then Brad filed a missing persons report the next day. So it's like so much went on in so little time, but nobody notified the police. And the screams were supposed to have happened in the wooded area, wherever that is, behind the house, I'm sure, somewhere. But it's very unnerving, all this information.
Neighbor heard arguing outside of his window and then spotted Suzanne in a physical altercation. And she was trying to break away from her husband, Brad. And then he heard screams coming from that wooded area near the home. What do you make of just the witnesses or slash neighbors account of what he had heard that Sunday night?
That's not good. It's not good. Just based on what you just said, that interview is probably in an affidavit where they got the probable cause to make the arrest. So I don't know why people don't call the police. People don't want to get involved. 24 hours is a long time. A lot of things.
Okay, so they didn't call the police right away. Had they called the police, something may have been different. The neighbor didn't call the police. They didn't, 24 hours later they did, though.
Can happen in 24 hours. But that is something I think a little bit beyond just an argument in the street, just like a domestic, your neighbors yelling next door. This goes a little bit beyond that.
And when you were a detective, I'm sure that you had spoken to several family members who just want their loved ones to return home and come back safely, or at least just have some type of closure in this case. And I can't even imagine what Suzanne's children are feeling right now. What is it like kind of speaking to family members of missing persons, and what all goes through their minds as someone who has maybe have spoken to families in the past?
Many times. And there's no easy way to do it. And it's very difficult. I mean, you're operating with something in your investigative mind. You know what's going on. You have a general idea what's happening. You cannot take hope from people until there is no more hope. So you have to be very guarded what you say. You have to take people's feelings into consideration. You can't be crass. You can't come across, like Joe Friday, just the facts. You can't do that when you're dealing with people, and you're dealing with, like you said, 4 children whose mom is now gone. I can't put myself in that situation. I never want to, but you have to consider that when you're making these notifications or you're doing these interviews, especially with children.
And this has to be extremely tough for them as well, too, because their mother is missing and their father is behind bars. And so I can't even imagine what that process is like. What are your thoughts on just both of their parents are gone right now? And again, I just want to emphasize that not gone being we don't know what happened to Suzanne Simpson, but as right now she is.
I don't believe so, Rondi. I believe that they didn't make it inside. As to what they're saying is, I think they got home and they started arguing in the front yard. I don't know if that entails, that they made it in the house. But the daughter said that she saw the dad hit the mom, and mom had a bruise on her elbow. So was the kids outside watching? Did they watch through the window? You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of information that hasn't been released, but that's sad that the child would be able to give that kind of information to the police, but it is also good that they were able to be aware enough to be watching for any kind of information to be, offering up later on. Thank you guys for being in the chat. Those of you that are here, those of you on replay, please do understand that this case is very important. Just like all cases that, seem suspicious, seem mysterious, well, that's part of true crime. Sometimes we don't get all the pieces, but the pieces that we do get, we can do due diligence and help these people out by getting the word out, whether on our community tabs or anything like that, because you just never know if someone saw something or maybe discounted something and thought, well, that has nothing to do with anything. But then they get to thinking later on, oh, I saw this or I heard this or, it's imperative that we do the right thing and not speculate or choose sides. Let's just try to find this lady and bring her home.
He is still missing. But what is it like for families, especially with the father in jail and then the mother is still missing right now?
Horrible. It's horrible. And again, like you said, we don't know where anybody is in this, but their lives are altered, drastically altered, and are altered abruptly. And I don't know if I'm sure they have a support system in the family where the kids are with the family. But I mean, now what do? You got your mom, who you want to protect, who you know, that's your mother, but you got your father also. Are you pitting the children one against the other, mother and father? It's horrible. It's very, very difficult for kids, especially the younger they are.
And what do you make of Brad Simpson not even being at the family home when he was arrested? He was at his ranch counties away. What do you kind of make of just his behavior and demeanor when, again, you know, his wife is missing? They've been married for more than 2 decades, but his behavior isn't kind of, to me, helping in his case at all right now.
No, he's cleaning up his mess. That's what I think he's doing. And they're gonna search it. Like I said, they're gonna do search warrants, I guarantee you, on the vehicle, on the home. Probably going to do one out on the ranch. He's cleaning up his mess. It's behavior. If my wife was missing, and I didn't have anything to do with it, you couldn't get me out of the police station. In a situation like this, it's covering his tracks. It's self-preservation is what it is.
And in your opinion, what's going to be more important in this case? Is it going to be the witness statements? Is it going to be the forensic evidence? Or is it going to be kind of just what we don't know right now as far as where Brad was in those hours that he had left the home and things like that? What is going to be the most important evidence to you, in your opinion, in this case?
Right now, they got a giant jigsaw puzzle on their table. Okay. They're getting the corners together. They're putting all the pieces together. And is one piece of evidence more important than the other? Maybe. But all of it comes into play. All of it. Physical evidence, extremely important. Eyewitness, important. Circumstantial evidence, important. Timelines. These are all parts of the puzzle that have to get put together. So is any piece of evidence more important than another one? Not really, because you can't just build a case off of one single piece of evidence. It's a whole process. And like I said, I heard the chief's briefing, and you're doing a great job from what I hear.
And obviously, I just, we always hope for the best, and we're going to continue to keep an eye out on this case. Will, I appreciate your time so much today. Before we sign you off, though, is there anything else that you would like to add?
God bless them out there. I hope for the best, especially for those children.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure.
Brad Simpson.
Okay, once again, if you're in Texas or anywhere near the area, you're encouraged to call the Almost Park Police Department at 210-822-2000 or search and support San Antonio at 210-7143. If you have any information on Suzanne Simpson or you know anything about Brad Simpson on October 6th timeline, if you saw anything, you noticed anything suspicious, you saw something on your camera, please get with the police and let them know anything that you've seen or heard to possibly bring this mother home. Now let's talk about this part because I mentioned it a while ago, and I'm going to show this. It says, Almost police reveal what led them to Southeast Bexar County landfill in search for missing mother Suzanne Clark Simpson. We feel confident that there's a good choice or a good chance of recovering Suzanne at that location. Let's see what this video had to say. Oh, well, we don't want that. It says, San Antonio, Almost Park police have released more details about why they're searching for missing mother Suzanne Clark Simpson in a Southeast Bexar County landfill. In a statement released to the residents by Almost Park Police Chief Fidel Villegas, officials said evidence, statements, and further police investigation have led officers to the landfill, the location of which investigators have asked not to share. So let's Let's see what this video says.
Park mom Suzanne Simpson now appears to be a recovery mission. That's based on a letter the police chief sent to his whole community. A handful of Olmos Park residents sent us that letter, which explains why investigators have descended on a landfill in southeast Bexar County.
Well, in a statement released to the city residents by Olmos Park Police Chief Vidal Villegas, officials said evidence, statements, and further police investigation led officers to that landfill. And in that statement, Olmos Park PD said in part, quote, "We feel confident there is a good chance of recovering Suzanne at that location," end quote.
Our Katrina Weber is live where day 2 of the landfill search has begun. And Katrina, we know you've been there for hours now. Are there any updates this morning?
But we have not had any briefing officially from police at this point, but we definitely have seen some physical changes. Let me point your attention to what's going on that hill behind us. Now, that's the area that yesterday, 24 hours ago, it was just mapped out as sort of a grid. There was yellow tape around that square area, but you can see things have changed considerably in the last 24 hours. We have people on that hill. They have been using that excavator that you see there to dig out what looks like trash that was buried in that area, and they're loading it onto the back of that dump truck. The dump truck then going up the hill where it is dumping out the contents, and the people, like that person you see in the white with the orange shoes, they're sorting through the trash at the top of the hill. This has been going on all morning long. Now, the chief, in his letter that he sent to the community, also took time to thank all of the law enforcement officers that have been out here. Those people in the white and orange, according to a post on social media from the police chief of San Antonio, William McManus, he says that those are all cadets with the SAPD, with the police department from San Antonio. But of course, this operation has been under the direction of the Olmos Park Police, because that is where this case originated. Of course, 51-year-old Suzanne Clark Simpson has been missing since Sunday of last week. According to police, there was a violent argument that turns into a fight involving her 53-year-old husband, Brad Simpson. He is now in jail. He's been there since last week. He's charged with charges that are related to family violence, nothing to do with her disappearance. But this search is going on. It's been here since yesterday morning. They've been looking in this landfill. We were told for evidence, but now, according to that letter that has been sent out to residents, it looks like they may be, in fact, looking for Suzanne Simpson herself. So again, this now turning from a search to what sounds very much like a recovery mission. Reporting live in southeast Bexar County, Katrina Weber, KSAT 12 News.
So, as she said, that the landfill is one of the 4 areas they have searched in connection with Simpson. Hold on, let me turn it on.
Our fall colors are so vibrant, you won't need to use a camera filter.
Okay, it says the warrant was signed on Saturday. It was filed by Texas DPS. Sealed warrants are common in federal cases, but are rarely used in county cases. The seal can remain in place for up to 31 days and only can be used if the attorney establishes in court that publicly disclosing the contents of the case would harm the case. Olmos police said that Simpson family had been helpful and supportive during the search for Suzanne Clark Simpson. We feel confident there's a good chance of recovering Suzanne at that location, the statement read. Olmos Park PD thanked other law enforcement agencies for their assistance in the investigation. Today, one OPPD police department continued investigating the case of Suzanne Clark Simpson. The Simpson family has been very helpful and supportive, even when they are the ones in need of support and understanding at this time. The OPPD met with family members to discuss the stage of the investigation. We're in the search stage. The search will be at Southeast Side Landfill. We feel confident there's a good chance of recovering Suzanne at that location. Evidence statements and solid police investigation had led us here. This would not be possible without the help of many other LA agencies and some non-LA agencies. However, the Texas Rangers and the DPS are at the forefront of this investigation, and the OPPD is working side by side with them. We ask that you pray, wish well the family in the coming days. We feel the community support and most of all the family support, and we will do our best to help the family in our incredible community. And there's Suzanne. So here's the timeline, Heather, if you're still here, or anybody that's watching. On Sunday, October 6th, the couple attended a party at the Argyle, a private dinner club on Patterson Avenue, before returning to their home, which they share with their two children. A neighbor told police between 10 and 11 p.m. Sunday, October 6th, he heard arguing outside the bedroom window that became louder and seemed closer to his window. When the neighbor looked out his window, he saw the Simpsons in a physical altercation. One affidavit states, he said Suzanne Clark Simpson was trying to get away from Brad Simpson as he tried to pull her down. It appeared Brad Simpson was clearly attempting to keep Miss Simpson from running away, the neighbor told authorities, according to the affidavit. The neighbor told authorities he last saw the couple heading westbound. The neighbor went outside to investigate, and a short time later, he heard 2 or 3 screams from a bushy area east of his home. About an hour later, the neighbor saw Brad Simpson start his black GMC pickup truck and leave his residence. The neighbor told authorities he saw Brad Simpson return 1 or 2 hours later. At 3 p.m. Monday, October 7th, their child's school called Brad Simpson and advised them that their child had not been picked up from school. Suzanne Clark Simpson typically picks up their children from school, Brad Simpson told police, according to the affidavit. On Tuesday, October 8th, police interviewed staff at the school one of their children attends. The child told staff that her parents were fighting and that her dad assaulted her mom and took her phone away. The affidavit states the child also said Suzanne Clark Simpson had a bruise on her elbow. At 12:42 Wednesday, October 9th, police obtained an arrest warrant for Brad Simpson. The charges were family assault, violence, and unlawful restraint. At around 1:30 a.m. Wednesday, October 9th, the Department of Public Safety and Kendall County Sheriff's Office took Brad Simpson into custody near 542 East Mile Marker on Interstate 10, according to the sheriff. He was booked into the Kendall County Jail after 4 a.m. and his bond was later set for $1 million. A charge. Investigators searched, so there's 2 charges, so there's $2 million. Investigators searched the couple's home and surrounding areas on Wednesday, October 9th, but declined to say what, if any, evidence was found. On Thursday, October 10th, police took down the crime scene tape from outside the home and opened East Olmos to traffic again. They condensed their command post to an area within 1 block along East Contour. On Thursday, October 10th, Brad Simpson was taken to the Bexar County Jail after being transferred from Kendall County. On Friday, October 11th, authorities searched the 33,000 block of I-10 near Highway 87, about a mile away from where Brad Simpson was arrested. The search lasted from about 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. Authorities did not say if anything of significance were found. On Sunday, October 13th, Monday, October 14th, and Tuesday, October 15th, authorities searched a landfill in southeast Bexar County in connection with the case. So there you have it. There you have it. And I don't know if I'm frozen up. I can't get out of here. Stupid Discord. I need to delete that app. So Yeah, I froze up there for a second. I don't know what's up with. I think it's the internet. I really do. I think the internet is bogged down or slowing down or something. And I think this is a live feed from the landfill. Might not be going on still, but it just it's a live feed from the other day. So once again, if you're just joining us, if you know anything about the case, you're to contact the Almost Park Police Department at 210-822-2000 or search and support San Antonio at 210-372-7143. All and any information is appreciated. Maybe you saw something that you feel that it's not important, or maybe you heard something else, or maybe you observed something that you thought was kind of suspicious, but later on discounted. Anything that you can remember, possibly, even maybe seeing a black GMC truck heading out somewhere. Maybe you caught that truck on camera. Maybe you were at a gas station and the truck stopped to fill up. Anything can help. Hopefully, this mother is found. She's been missing since October 6th, 2024. And here we are, October 26th, 2024. So it's been approximately 20 days since anybody has heard from her. The last person to supposedly have heard from her was her mother. An hour before all this altercation went down, the mother gave an interview that stated Suzanne was planning on leaving and going to her mother's, at least to be safe. She had confided in her mother about the physicality of the relationship. So you've also heard some of the updates as far as the child was not picked up the next day. The child released information to a teacher about mom and dad fighting. Mom had a bruise on her elbow. Dad took her cell phone, and through, I guess, investigation and interviews, they got information that possibly Suzanne could be at this landfill. So as of today, at this moment, there's no further news whether that is the location where Suzanne's going to be found or if she's still alive. So Rondi says, never tell your spouse you're leaving. Just leave. And that is some useful information right there. I mean, it's domestic violence is a thing, you know. That's a good question. She did have older children, so possibly they came and gave her a ride to school. Maybe the dad took the child to school. That's a good question. That hasn't been released. So, if you have any information whatsoever, please let someone know. These children deserve to know what happened to their mother. And it's a sad case so far. I mean, at this point, and just they're searching for her. They haven't updated it to anything nefarious at this point. So, as we all know, though, based on what we've heard so far in our true crime mentality, connecting the puzzle pieces, it doesn't look good for Brad. It doesn't look good at all. I haven't covered a lot of cases where the husband ends up hurting the wife or possibly killing her, other than the Chris Watts case. And I know that he was adamant that he hadn't seen her. You know, he was even, until he went next door and was viewing the camera footage from his neighbor. And then all of a sudden he started acting strange. I would definitely be talking to whoever got the kid to school. You're right. You're right. Because that's important information, and I'm sure they did that. But if they didn't, maybe they're still processing certain things. I mean, obviously this background that I'm showing right now is not a definite area where she is. So I don't want you guys to take that in and say that I'm showing, her last resting place or whatever. But this is a strong possibility, as I read in that news article that I just finished reading. So hopefully this is not the case. Maybe this is not, the last place. Maybe possibly this is where the cell phone was thrown or something like that. Maybe that's what led them to this point. Maybe the cell phone was last pinged here or whatever, as we have heard in other cases about phone pings and how, certain location can, transmit a phone to a nearby tower. I mean, no telling how they got this information, but they seem to use digital evidence really quickly these days when they investigate a crime. And it seems like most people do have digital footprint that allow them to be found or at least in the vicinity of where their phones last pinged. This video has no sound, so that's why I'm kind of broadcasting it. It says last seen on October 6th. So it's interesting to think that they got into a physical altercation. The neighbor heard screams in the woods, and then she didn't pick up her daughter the next day. The husband reported her missing. The daughter said the dad took her phone and she had a bruise on her elbow. And that's basically all the information we know at this point. They had stated in that article that she had two children that lived at the home. So probably the 15-year-old and the 5-year-old. You said she had 4 children. I remember you put that on there. You said, I'm looking for it. 20, 18, 15, and 5. So chances are the 20-year-old and the 18-year-old are out of the home, and the 15-year-old and the 5-year-old are probably the ones that, yeah, that are still in the home. So we don't know if one of the older children could have taken the youngest and the 15-year-old to school. You just never know that. I mean, they could have been attending college locally. You just never know the other circumstances. But the fact is, the mom usually picked up the youngest child. So she failed to pick her up and is now missing for 20 days. So anybody watching this, pass the word along. Suzanne Simpson, Suzanne Clark Simpson, age 51. Last seen at Olmos Park, Texas. If you heard anything, you saw anything, please get the word out. Please contact the Olmos Park Police Department, 210-822-2000, or search and support San Antonio, 210-372-7143. And this is in Texas. So if you hear anything, you see anything, look in the cameras. Try to remember any oddities that you may have seen on October 6th, I would say probably later on in the evening would have been about, I don't know, maybe 9:30 to probably 11. I'm speculating here, but I would assume that would be the time frame, or maybe a little later. So just be on the lookout for any kind of information that could get this mother home, one way or the other. And you guys, I told you guys I'd come back and do a better video, and I hope this did it justice. The other video was kind of skipping around and everything, so I'm going to close it out for now. Let's let's say a prayer for the Simpson family, send good vibes their way, that they bring their loved one home. And say a prayer for these children. It must be hell not knowing what happened. And if Brad's not involved, pray for him as well, because you just never know. He might not be involved. We can't automatically say that he was involved. We don't know. He hasn't been charged with the crime. So I ask you, can you dig it? Can you dig it? If you can't dig it, you might need to get you that excavator right there. Maestro, cue that music. Hold on, before I do that, I want to show you guys something. I am going to have a live tonight around 9 p.m. Central. And it's not going to be a live that's made for everybody, but it is something that needs to be talked about because it's a portion of the underworld of true crime. So this is going to be my live for tonight. And I understand if you guys don't feel like watching it. There's nothing explicit in the video, even though, the thumbnail is kind of shows it, but it's not explicit. There's no nudity. There's no cussing. There's nothing like that. So this is going to be my show for tonight. It's 12 Gauge Investigative Life of a Dancer, Myth versus Reality. And it kind of gives you a good insight on that lifestyle because, there's lifestyle that people have no clue about. But once a crime occurs, for whatever reason, they start speculating as they know exactly what kind of lifestyle people live. You know what I mean? And that's why I put exposure on drug addicts, dancers, cartels. You ain't got to play, Rondi. You know that's you right there on that pole. And I think Heather took the picture, so y'all need to quit playing. But I'm not showing these alternative risque lives to be shocking. I'm showing them to give you a glimpse of how crime is incorporated in a lot of these areas. It could be, trafficking, it could be, abuse, it could be all kinds of things. So that's why I venture in all these risque areas to educate my audience on these things. So if a crime ever occurs in any of these demographics, you're instantly going to use logic, not what you hear from movies or other people's perspectives, Well, now we know why you were shown the cowboy hat the other day, right? Just be honest, Heather. You were taking pictures that night. See, those are your dollar bills that are throwing all around Rondi right there. So hopefully you guys will be here tonight. And thank you so much for all that you do, guys, for the support that you give me. If you're watching this on replay, thank you so much. Y'all have a wonderful Saturday. And once again, Maestro, cue that music.